Yeah, it's 4:01.
Yeah, Doctor.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Agrawal, start.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry and MITRAA, I welcome you all to this very important session on hospitality and tourism industry. We are fortunate to have Dr. Palani G. Periasamy, past President SICCI and the Chairman of Lee Royal Meridien Hotel. I request Mr. Ganapathy, President, to welcome formally to this session. Mr. Ganapathy is the Chairman of Trigen Technologies. Mr. Ganapathy, please.
Thank you, Dr. Raghavan, as always.
Good evening.
And it's my high privilege and honor to invite the very distinguished past president of the Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Palani G. Periasamy. Dr. Palani Periasamy needs no introduction in the business circle of India. And he came back from the US after serving as a professor in Maryland, and came back to serve India and create jobs for Indians at the invitation of the former Chief Minister of the state of Tamil Nadu, Dr. M.G. Ramachandran. Apart from being the chairman of the La Meridien group of hotels, he also runs sugar industry as a sugar mill, apart from a very popular college in Western Tamil Nadu. Folks, today we are going to be discussing about, this is also our last webinar for the moment, even as we anticipate about the quality of the relaxation that is going to happen starting Monday. But suffice to say, this has been a great privilege for Chamber to host, and what better way to sign off than having one of our most distinguished past presidents, Dr. Palani Periasamy, to share his thoughts on what is, without doubt, a common thread that amongst everyone, that the most stressed sector coming out of this present crisis could well be tourism and travel. But I have a different take, Doctor. Yes. I think, I was talking to somebody, and he was telling me that we felt the same way when the tsunami hit the coast of Tamil Nadu. People said East Coast is, nobody's going to buy property in East Coast anymore. They will all move into the hinterland. Seaside resorts, etc., would pack up because we heard some horror stories there. But then 6 months later, people had bounced back, and the land prices went. This land not being available now is the challenge. So I think that people overcome challenges. Every challenge presents an opportunity, and I think even if the international travel is going to take a while before it is restored, fair to believe that Indian tourism itself offers huge potential. I never tire telling people that amongst the best places in the world that I've been to, and I've been quite a few places, I can tell you that with some authority and conviction, but the best place I've been to in the world is in India. That's Tawang and Arunachal Pradesh. No better place than that. So I think Indian tourism is bound to pick up momentum, and I think I'm fairly certain that this sector, much stressed as it is, even when it went in, will come out strong sooner than later, perhaps much faster and earlier than what most people believe it will. But then I'm not the pundit, and to discuss this with you is arguably one of India's most distinguished TV anchor and digital media personality, my good friend and younger brother, S Sudhir. He will now take you on this sector, Doctor. Welcome, and over to TS. Thank you, TS.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ganapathy. As you said, COVID-19 has been an unexpected and an unwanted tourist in India. In fact, the coronavirus is traveling all over India, while all of us Indians have been forced to get into homestays of a rather different kind. And in fact, the only major tourist destination that coronavirus has not been able to actually penetrate, interestingly, has been Goa. In fact, the joke goes that even Corona had to cancel its Goa plan. Now, the hit the entire tourism sector worldwide is going to take is huge. 50 million jobs, I was reading in an article, going to be at risk all over the world. In India, the number is being put at somewhere around 4 to 5 crore people could actually lose their jobs. Of course, Dr. Palani Periasamy, I beg your pardon, knows it much better than all of us. And I would be very keen to understand from him what are the challenges, of course, and more importantly, what are the opportunities that the entire tourism, hospitality, airline industry could actually look at in this post-corona pandemic world. Over to you, Dr. Periasamy.
Thank you, Mr. Ganapathy and Mr. Sudhir. I take the great opportunity to be with you because under the leadership of Mr. Ganapathy, a lot of things have been happening in recent days in terms of educating the mass about the current economic and political and health crisis facing not only India but also the world. I would like to dwell upon, first of all, we must understand what is tourism and hospitality industry is. It doesn't refer only to the hotels. It refers to many other areas like tour operators,
Yes.
event managers, the people who are involved in the airline, aviation, restaurants, etc. Because as you rightly said, Mr. Sudhir pointed out, more than 5 crores of people are directly employed and indirectly another 9 crore people are employed. Totally, it is constitute about 9 to 9.2% of the GDP of our country. It's the largest employer in terms of its impact on the Indian economy. In fact, tourism is the third largest foreign exchange earner for our country. And that being the case, it is unfortunately the worst hit industry today due to corona is tourism and hospitality. And as you may know that out of the entire industry, 90% are in the unorganized sector, that is in the economy mid-scale level. And out of it, 70% of them are shut. And among the hotels, if you look at it throughout the country, 60% of the hotels are fully closed, around 2% occupancy. The rest of them are maintaining about 20 or somewhere between 20 to 22% occupancy. And this is a very vibrant industry because it doesn't reflect only the room occupancy, it reflects many other allied activities which are job creators.
Yes.
One of the most important element of tourism and hospitality is job creation. And as you said, definitely we expect about more than 5 crores of people becoming unemployed, very in the short run. On the other hand, Mr. Ganapathy has pointed out for every major crisis like 7/11, Bombay blast, the 2008 financial crisis, we all came out well, and tsunami, for instance. But on the other hand, those are not only they are all natural calamities which could be overcome. Now, besides the major calamity, we have the economic loss, the kind of loss that we incurred. Of course, worldwide, everybody had incurred. But in India, it is hitting hard because tourism industry was fast developing, like at the rate of 3 to 4% per annum. And it was their greatest, as I mentioned to you, it's a foreign exchange earner. All the international chains are in India. And most of the guests, it's not only tourism, it is also the business related. And Mr. Ganapathy is in the IT industry, he knows very well, but IT was the one which was giving the maximum business to the hospitality industry. And all these things have come to a standstill today, causing a irreparable damage financially to our industry today. And particularly in Chennai, for example, we have 9,000 rooms in the luxury segment and about 15,000 rooms in the mid and economy segment. All of them are now shut, and the entire economy has become a standstill situation. Such being the case, I think it needs a reorientation. Maybe perhaps I know this has created an opportunity for us to rethink the way we do business. We were depending on the international tourism. Maybe we must look inward because our India has more than 1.3 billion people, and this 1.3 billion people have a great potential. In recent days, in recent years, Indians have started moving internally, that is domestic tourism. As Mr. Ganapathy pointed out, Himachal Pradesh, for example, is something an unexplored opportunity for promoting domestic tourism. And likewise, we have mountain tourism, we have health tourism, we have uh, the rural tourism. There are so many ways in which India itself we can explore. And the whole character in the future months, I expect that we may have to look at internally, because if we depend on international travel, it may take a while because it's related to the travels, aviation, it related to the business promotion and conferences, uh, exhibitions, all these things, the mice business. It will take a while, 5 to 6 months. Even many of the people are predicting uh, about 6 to 9 months for the industry to recover. And this is the right time for the government to think about what they can do to really revive the economy, revive this industry, to bring it back in a very quick manner to the original level of vibrant activity and vibrant level of operations. I think maybe perhaps if there is a question I will answer, but overall I think there's a time that, for example, GST. GST is now collected on, maybe Mr. Bhandari can comment on it. It's now collected on declared tariff. Whereas in the future months, many hotels, all of us, all the hotels in India have to cut down. They have to discount a lot in order to attract the customers. And but if we go with the declared tariff rate, which is a GST, then it will be very hard on the potential consumers and also on the hotels. And I am of the view that it is time that GST should be re-looked at it in terms of how it is applicable to the hospitality industry. In addition, I would say that the GST, whatever we collect, must be utilized, must be allowed, the hotels should be allowed to use that as working capital for another 6 months or 9 months. And another important thing is now the whole pattern, the behavior, the entire system has come to a different shape. Our hotels have to be paying more attention to the sanitation, hygiene, and all other preventive measures to prevent corona type of diseases from occurring in the future. Accordingly, that would be an additional expenditure for which the government also must come forward to assist the industry to absorb the additional cost that will be incurred in terms of bringing the sanitation and the hygiene standard to a different level, which is required for the time being. And looking at the operation in many countries like US and Europe and all countries around the world, including Bangladesh, they had come up with immediately a relief package wherein they are providing funds for 2 to 3 months pay. Now the entire industry came to a standstill. It was stopped, and we have closed the all of them are remaining shut. Such being the case, it is putting an enormous economic and monetary burden on the industry in terms of how to make payment to the employees. This is the time that the government must come forward to assist in terms of at least bearing 50 or 60% of the salary for 3 months, which will go a long way in bringing the industry in a quick manner to the level which it was enjoying much before the outbreak of the coronavirus. And I see a different approach in the hospitality and tourism industry. For example, marriages, weddings, conferences, meetings, get-togethers, all these things are going to go through a complete transformation of a change. And I don't know whether, how long will it take for weddings to really come back in the way it was being done in the past, and what kind of numbers they were talking about. Because please understand that the hospitality industry, particularly the hotels and restaurants and all that, they depend on the total footfall. The more the people, the more the income, and the better the opportunity for them to survive. And such being the case, for the people to come back, to bring them back to the level, I think it will take a long time. During this period, that's where we seek some kind of assistance that will go a long way. And the total employment generation in this sector, particularly we mentioned about Goa, many of the places like Kerala, Mahabalipuram, Goa, and all these things are becoming extremely popular among the foreign tourists. But now I don't know how far it will take, but maybe definitely it will come back. But the question is when, and during up to that period, will the industry be sufficiently rather financially strong enough to sustain this great loss or great burden? That is what is now under consideration.
Right, sir.
So you have any question?
Right. Thank you very much, Doctor. You have covered most of the points, but I would first start with one sector that you did not touch upon in detail, and that's the airline sector, which have been completely grounded. None of them have taken off for almost more than 4 weeks now. What will it take for the airlines to kind of get back to business? We are told that from the 18th of May, there could be some kind of travel allowed on some sectors with some restrictions put in place, like, the middle seat would not be sold to any passenger. What would it take? What are the biggest challenges as far as the airline sector you reckon?
So about 25 million people will be out of jobs.
Just in the airline sector.
And the damage will be in billions of dollars. And many of the airlines will not be able to function, and the economic viability will be in the great dispute. And accordingly, there will be a kind of, in the late 80s, there was some crisis in the airline industry globally. And they came back by consolidation, and so many of the airlines went out of business. And now I understand even Virgin Atlantic has filed for bankruptcy in a couple of days ago. And there are others are also on the verge of filing for bankruptcy. This is the time, I think, as I see it, unless this kind of spacing and social distancing, like leaving one seat in between, I think they may all make psychologically a great impact. As far as I am not a medical doctor, but as I see it, it's rather difficult to enforce it.
Yes.
Enforcement is a question. Moreover, you saw in the recent days when we had a problem in the market, when we opened up and they declared that there would be some continuation of the shutdown, immediately people rushed in and we could not control them. And in airlines, to ensure that there is a middle seat left out means it will increase the cost, and cost of travel will increase. Accordingly, number of people who are traveling will be reduced significantly if the spacing is really going to be the norm in the future travel, international travel in particular.
So that would mean more expensive tickets from a customer, from a passenger point of view, for one. Do you see the possibility of airlines, actually you mentioned that airlines could actually shut shop They may not be able to fly at all. You said some of them have filed for bankruptcy, like Virgin, you mentioned. Just to slightly take off on a tangent briefly, what would happen to a carrier like Air India in this kind of a scenario, which is already trying hard to be sold?
But Air India is being a public limited company and government sponsored. It may sustain.
Do you think there may be an opportunity for Air India in this kind of a scenario?
It would be, because it all depends on how they manage their pattern and their future investment and operational strategy.
Now, talking about the hotels, you mentioned that 60% of them are almost at 0% occupancy. Yesterday evening when we were talking, you said that the only hotels which are doing well are the ones which have converted themselves into some kind of quarantine centers. At least there is at least 70 to 80% occupancy in that sense out there.
But that is only in certain pockets like Aero City in New Delhi.
Absolutely. Yes.
And some hotels in Mumbai. Not in
So how does the hotel industry kind of recoup the losses that it has suffered over the past 1 month, 5 weeks or so? I mean, just quantify the magnitude of the hit the hotel industry has taken over the past 5 weeks.
The last 45 days, what we lost is 25% of the total revenue of the hotel. 25% of the things. Then it will have a multiplier impact in the future, meaning that for us to, even if we open the hotel tomorrow, these travelers will not come and the guests will not come, check in. First of all, they are unsure about the safety and security and the health issue. And secondly, whether they will be able to move freely, because the airlines are going to be very slow in their operation and trains are not running very frequently. There will be restriction. And so I think for another 3-4 months.
So are there been any layoffs in the hotel industry also? Are hotels also sacking staff?
I think each hotel is pursuing a different strategy. But for example, some hotels, as we understand, including ours, we are really trying to not to lay off people, but we want to really keep them employed. For example, one set of people will be employed for a fortnight, another set will be called until the this business picks up. We are going to distribute the opportunity for the employees so that all of them are getting some kind of.
But in that case, it will also entail pay cuts if they are going to be asked to work only for a fortnight?
There would be, yes.
There would be pay cuts instead of layoffs.
And there are two things. Here, we have two choices. Either we lay them off or we really keep them somewhat employed and also keep them pumping some money for their livelihood. And we chose the second one, meaning we want to keep all of them employed.
Sainath has a question. What should the hospitality concentrate from here for the next 12 months? What should be your 1, 2, 3 strategies, specific strategies in the hospitality sector?
One strategy should be to develop the domestic tourism. And as we discussed yesterday, Mr. Bhandari has suggested that whether we can even go with the EMI type, that is allow them to come and enjoy the benefit of the hospitality, then get them, they pay in installment or later on. But that may or may not be working in the Indian context, but however, that is also a good idea. And our concentration should be in the coming months to see whether we can tap the domestic opportunity. For example, the temple tourism. And that is very much on the anvil, and there are many areas, unexplored regions. In fact, nowadays the rural tourism is becoming very extremely popular among our own people, because many of the people have not traveled within the country. And this may be the opportunity where the hotels can come up with ideas to lure the people to come and visit several places of interest within our country. We have many treasures. We have mountains, rivers, temples,
True.
all the good spots. And
But for temple tourism to take off, first the temples also have to open. I mean, most of the temples in India are also shut at this point in time. You mentioned rural tourism. K. Chandrasekharan, who's associated with the agriculture industry, has also a point to make about farm tourism. He says farm tourism can play an important role in Indian tourism. What are the incentives for this part of the industry, specifically about farm tourism?
tourism is we can take them, and they can. Many of them are excited. They have never been to a farm from urban areas. We can take them in both foreigners and Indians. They can go to the farm. They can see the farming methods. They can even get involved in farming. And there are evidences to prove, instances to prove that they are also, many other foreigners are coming here. They even take care of the elderly people. They just tender them, and they just take care of them for a few months, and they teach them. And some other, in our own school system, we have brought people from England and other places who come here for vacation, and they want to teach our children, and we have provided them accommodation, and we have provided them opportunity for them to go around the place,
So,
and they have been teaching our own children.
so basically, the way I see it, sir, in the sense that tour operators will now have to think out of the box in order to tweak and look at different ways of marketing their holiday destinations and different kinds of destinations, right?
Absolutely, you are absolutely that. The key point is that the tour operators have to change the way they operate, and they have to tap the local market. And I think they have to come up with new products.
Yes.
That is, you see, a challenge of this kind requires some innovative and creative ideas to boost the trade. And in fact, tour operators, if they skillfully manage to come up with certain packages, I think that will sell well, and that will help the industry to really keep going.
Sir, the kind of talk about the economy so far, unfortunately, hasn't focused on this part of the economy, even though, as you said, the amount of foreign exchange it generates. There has been no specific relief package for the hotel industry or for the airline industry or for the entire tourism industry. What is your view? Somi Hazari wants to know, what are your views on what should be this relief package be like? What's your
I have a
list?
few items, and I have very clearly that's what the Hotel Association also has said. First of all, we have to defer. I seek the government help in deferring all the fees which are required to be paid for, and there should be a tax holiday, and they have to subsidize the employment, the employees' wages, and then they have to, the GST collection should be left with the hotels, so that they can they will not be able to manage with available working capital. They need more because to start up and to come up with the new strategies. And plus the utility cost, like now EB, the electricity boards, they charge the load factor rather than looking at the load. They must look at the cost based on the actual utilization. That would be a very great relief for the industry. Now, whatever may be the consumption, they don't worry about it. What is the load factor? And accordingly, they charge. That's rather criminal in terms of the furnishing the hotels, and particularly the installations which cannot use the maximum allowable load. And that's another thing. And servicing the debt is another thing. And you are absolutely right, Mr. Sudhir, that government so far, even though tourism and hospitality sector yields the maximum foreign exchange in this country, it earns, they have not yet come up with any specific proposal to revive and revitalize this industry. It's a bit of surprising to me. Even though many hotel associations have made a representation, I think government has not come, both municipal, state, and central government. They have not yet come up with any specific proposal to help the industry so far. And particularly the loan factor, the debt restructuring is a very important element in terms of bringing and keeping this industry alive.
Right.
We should not let the airlines and the hotels to go bad, go in difficult financial stress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, staying with this point, Afzal from Mohammed Afzal from Perveen Travels has this point to make, saying that we don't see any support in the form of waiver of tax, insurance, tolls, and interest. We would need that for at least 6 months to a year, and he wants to know your view on this.
Absolutely, I think because Mr. Afzal, I know, and he is one of the main persons in terms of this domestic tourism. He transports many people to many interesting places, and those are the things. Now, how can they support? And there is a fixed cost. The cost, a heavy cost are involved, and accordingly, in order to really service them, there should be some kind of relief for not only, I would say, 12 months holiday must be given, tax relief must be given, and also the local cess, VAT and GST, all these things must be really somewhat waived off or at least postponed for a year.
Right. Mike Muralidharan has an interesting question. He asked whether hospitals and hotels can combine to strengthen medical tourism given mutual strengths and some kind of synergy. Do you think that kind of synergy is possible?
Yes, I think before the outbreak of the coronavirus, yes, medical tourism was uppermost in our mind. It was gaining momentum, and Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Coimbatore, and all other places were getting good business in terms of medical tourism from abroad. But today, in this present scenario, I do not know how many foreigners will be able to or will be wanting to come to India for medical purpose. And that being the case, I am not seeing there will be a temporary setback to medical tourism. And but however, as our president has suggested, this will disappear after a while. It will revive and people will start coming back because we have the best of the medical facilities in the country. The services are good, and at the same time it's a cost effective. Particularly in the context of now, of course, as an economist, I am a bit bothered. I don't know how many of you agree or disagree. Mr. Balasubramaniam and others, Somi, everybody must, Mr. Bandari. Our current level of devalued rupee is a bit of a criminal act, in my view. That is, we cannot afford to keep this rupee in such a low level. I don't know what Mr. Ganapathy thinks because Ganapathy is getting some foreign exchange. So,
I'm happy, sir. Entirely happy.
No, I am saying that for 78, we used to, both of us, all of us have studied the purchasing power parity theory. That is the market basket. The kind of money that we spend for one basket of goods, and the same thing what it costs in America or Europe is amazing. And why do we have to sell India at the lowest, at this cheapest level of 78 rupees or 76 rupees per dollar? I think now, if this, I take it to my hotel industry. For foreigner, if you go abroad, there is no way you really cannot get your room anything less than $150 or $200 or 200 euro. Whereas an American or any foreigner today, he can come here for paying $700. He will get the 5-star deluxe hotel with a breakfast included. So India is not is selling our services cheap. And that being the case, I think it is time that we also must look at to what extent we can devalue our rupee.
Right. You spoke about international traveler, that it will be a while before the international traveler starts coming into India. But also the business travel, I see it getting affected because businessmen, having seen over the past 4 to 5 weeks that they don't need to physically travel, they can actually do it over Zoom and do webinars like this. They don't really need to physically go and hold meetings. So in case if business travel actually goes down, and Anand asked this question, do you think the thrust will be only on leisure travel to shore up the entire tourism industry and business?
I thought about it, and I think, in my view, this having the video conferencing and other things are not always a great substitute. It will serve the purpose of basic things, but real the business transactions, I think, still I would say after a while, uh, companies will start sending the people and all the executives will travel, because traveling and interacting face to face, it will solve many of the other issues. And of course, I am told now in many American companies are now going to cut back on the total number of employees working in the office. They want to have only, they can stay at home and work, including
Yes.
TCS. Yesterday,
Yes.
Tata Consulting has come up with the idea that they would also, in 2 years, they will cut back on this and allow the employees to work from home.
That's right.
But this is all right. I think this is going to be integral part of our business dealings. However, we cannot replace the significant and efficacy and the importance of business interaction face to face. And I am not overtly worried about it. I am not at all worried about it. Eventually, business travel will take place. But now, due to economic and financial constraints, many of the firms in the world, they cannot afford, they may not be able to send people for small and big conferences. But eventually, I think that the movement of people between nations and between companies will definitely be the answer to promote effective and efficient business operations.
So if that is going to happen, how long a time do you see before the MICE ecosystem within the tourism industry actually kickstarts once again? Because obviously the conference halls, the exhibitions, the hotels are not seeing any MICE traffic at all at this point in time.
Yes.
How long do you see that to remain like that before it actually starts all over?
Definitely 12 months.
12
Yes,
months.
it will not happen because many of the companies have to readjust their budget.
Yes.
They have to reassess their economic situation, financial situation, and their projected economic performance. All these things, I think, we have to look at it from the perspective of the companies and how they readjust their expenditure pattern for conducting conferences and meetings, etc. I think it will take a minimum 9 to 12 months for them to start picking up the business.
You mentioned right at the beginning about the pay cuts and in some cases layoffs also. Siddharth asked specifically about how jobs in hospitality industry at the entry level, how they can be saved. You know, people who have joined a year ago,
I
2
think
years ago.
they will be out of jobs.
That's a very dire prediction you're making, that they will be out of their job.
They will be, most of the entry level people. I am predicting two things might happen. If the business picks up very rapidly, very more than what we expect, then we may like to have experienced people to cater to the needs. But if the business is slowly picking up, then in that case, the entry level people will be more kept and the high paid people may be dropped.
Okay. So the amount of salary they earn will be the deciding factor, essentially.
Because it's a matter of our ability to pay.
That's right. Dr. Raghavan, Secretary SICCI asked, how can public-private partnership work in this sector if we want to kind of somehow salvage the situation and ensure future growth?
Definitely, there would not be much of an opportunity for public and private. I think you need to know more about what you mean by that. Whether the government will become partner or what kind of a situation, public-private partnership. Meaning that if they can come up with equity, whether the infusion of equity, will it help the industry? Definitely it will help. But to what extent will government come? I think the way I expect is public-private partnership may or may not work in the hospitality industry because of the complexity of the structure and the service standards and the classifications, etc.
Uh,
However, this is where the government really now must become, play a significant role. And they should not forget the important role played by the tourism and hospitality industry in the country. And look at how many, for the last, since the globalization, since 1991, where we are, where we were, and how we are today, it's all because of the tourism and hospitality industry. The boom, IT boom, has created opportunity, it created demand for services, and the aviation industry, the tourism industry, restaurants, every tour operators, everything went on well, and the people's habits were changing. Before that, I think eating out was not in our item of the thing in India, the culture. And secondly, people were not traveling that well. And later on, during this decade, after 1991, after we globalized our economy, liberalized our economy, I think things have perked up, and more things were happening it's in level with whatever is happening abroad. And I think our Peruvian travels is like a greyhound in America, and it is everywhere. You see that, and this kind of thing I had not seen before 1990, and so the people's habits are changing, and this changing pattern of people's culture and approach will definitely be a great potential for this industry survive.
We spoke about hotels. Sanjay Bhandari wonders if we could actually looking at workstations being developed in large hotels to make efficient use and optimum use of the real estate available in hotels.
Yeah,
in case the hotels are not able to survive.
That's an excellent idea. I think already some of the hotels have been doing it. Even in our case also, we have done it. We have given some office space, some people, and they use it for a long time, like 1 year or 6 months or 3 years, like that.
Right.
And more, I think if businesses want to cut down their fixed cost, and they can very easily opt to go into the hotels and take some space on a leased basis, which will be more economical and more convenient, and that would be easier also. And that's one aspect that I think people should consider. On the other hand, we are all faced with office accommodation. A lot of space will be available now. There will be a keen competition for the utilization of the available office space, because I think that also will become a bit available, and there will be a downward pressure on the rental in the office accommodation.
What are the other ideas that you're possibly working with? Ravi Ladda wants to know what other options hotels will have to fill up rooms over a period of time, the next 3 to 6 months, and come to break-even point until they are really sustainable on their own. And Mr. K. Sripati adds, would differentiated pricing, would that be a factor that could be or something?
I think pricing is, to some extent, pricing is one aspect where we can discount a lot. On the other hand, we have to come up with, as I mentioned to you, we have to come up with some creative ideas. We have to come up with different products. And I was talking to my people about how best we can, what are the new ideas we can come up with, out of box ideas. What is the kind of thing which we can make people to come and visit the hotel and utilize the services of the hotel.
Right.
And I think the way I see it is, we have to pull them out. Actually, what is tourism? Tourism is you are going out of your established area to another area where you just, for trade or for tourism and other things, you just travel and use somebody's accommodation. And suppose if we can give some attractive opportunities for people where they see a utility, definitely they will start using the hotel. And that's where we have to apply both in the eating, by restaurants. Of course, more and more restaurants have come up with the new ideas. And then tour operators can come up with some packages. They can cooperate and coordinate with the hotels so that the cost minimization can take place.
So
That way we can offer very attractive offer to the customers. Thereby, both the tour operators, the transporters, and others can also benefit.
You mentioned in your talk about the fact that weddings, etc., it will be some time before those kind of opulent weddings will once again take place. Of course, we discussed about conferences, but even during demonetization, for instance, we have seen that opulent weddings were still taking place. Do you really feel that the big fat Indian weddings that we have known in the past, it will be some time before those kind of weddings, marriages are still again conducted?
No, there is a propensity to conduct those marriages is there. However, whether they may be permitted or sociologically whether it will be acceptable in the short run, I have my own doubt. But however, after a few months, I agree with you, they will go back to the original level. Definitely they will celebrate the marriage which they had planned the way they wanted.
Okay, with or without masks?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, do you see some kind of shake-up taking place in the hospitality sector? Surya Najiar wants to know whether there is an opportunity for mergers and acquisitions in this space. Do you foresee that?
Definitely, I am foreseeing that there will be some transformation which will be taking place, both in terms of acquisitions and also on the financial viability of certain properties. Particularly the recently built properties will have a hard time because they had invested huge amount, but the cash flow may not be sustainable in terms of meeting their EMI requirement, and a huge capital involved. And if you look at it throughout the world, building a hotel in India is more expensive because of the land cost, because of the material cost, and also the way we build hotels. We build a hotel as art pieces, but in other countries they build it with a prefabricated, and it's a quick fix. They can build a hotel in 6 months. But in our case, it takes us 5 years, 3 years, 4 years. We create as an art piece. And our expenditure and the cost of construction is very huge, and our debt burden is very high. And recently built hotels may find it very hard unless they have deep pocket. But established hotels may really tide this difficulty over.
Okay. One of the slogans for Indian tourism was Incredible India. Do you think that needs to change? Should we kind of focus more on being safe in India? Do you see the entire marketing approach to India also needs to change?
I am glad you got this, because that's going to be our own company's slogan. What our general managers and others have come up with the idea, sir, we have to sell our hotel as a hotel where people can be safe, and the hygienic and other standards are very high, and protection is very high. That's how we have to sell our hotel. That's what they told me. And I think that can be applicable to the nation also. India, considering the 1.3 billion people, and the total episode in terms of the people affected by corona is very marginal. 0.0009% of the population.
That's right.
And India has contained, and I compliment the effort of the state government and the federal government for having taken the precaution right on time. They say right in time to really prevent the Holocaust. Right. And I am very happy that we have taken enough precaution, and India will definitely be a showcase for other countries to feel safe. One good thing I think is that of all the nations today which are going through this big crisis, India appears to be least affected. That being, and also we are going to have our medical people and medical facilities and medicine, all things are being spoken very highly globally. That being the case, I think India, the foreign travelers, it's my view and my hope, they will feel India as a safe country to travel, safe place in terms of health and other things. And that may be one of the silver lining I see in this crisis for the hospitality industry.
Right. So Safe India, it will be
Yes.
lovely listening to all your answers, very comprehensive talk and taking all the questions relating to different parts of the entire tourism sector. Thank you very much for your time, and do hope the entire tourism sector is able to get up on its legs and be the vibrant industry that it has been for so many years. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
I really thank you for the opportunity, and particularly I thank the President and Mr. Aghavan and others. But one thing is, I think the action should be on the part of the government must be swift. If we don't take action immediately, I think the industry will suffer a great loss.
Right.
The significance of this industry is so vital for the health of the nation. And accordingly, the policymakers must seize this opportunity to come up with some relief packages, to all the segments of the tourism and hospitality industry, not particularly hotel. I refer to all elements of the hospitality and tourism industry.
Right.
And I am so, it is a great pleasure to be able to exchange views with you. And I always admire Mr. Ganapathy and SICCI team for having given me the opportunity again. I thank you
very
again.
much.
Thanks,
Thank
my
you very
friends.
much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. May I request Mr. R. Ganapathy to give the vote of thanks?
Doctor, a question before I do the expression of gratitude. India has a huge unexploited coastline for tourism. Now, if Safe India is what we are going to be focusing, and I can already see Afzal trying to get his buses repainted from Incredible India to Safe India.
Yeah.
What is your suggestion to exploit this sector? Tourism in the sea coast is considered for the rich and the famous in this country. But I think if we need to sustain this industry, we need to focus there also. So what is your top idea on this, Doctor?
Definitely, I think we have the longest coastline in the world. It's very much unexploited and unexplored, and it has not been publicized well. Except Kerala, all other states have not, they have exploited to a great extent the opportunity to bring people. But all other areas have not yet attracted, they have not exposed. And definitely it is an opportunity for us to look at it very aggressively. And that is a beauty. Now the coast from wherever you start, the Arabian coast or West Bay of Bengal, absolutely we have great potential for improving our tourism potential. And wherever the trains don't go, the buses can go. And that is what they do now. I think more and more people can be brought to the East Coast also, rather than now they all go to Goa and other places. More people can come into South and particularly East Coast. It has a lot of potential from Isaac and all places.
Which means a revisit of your CRZ, right?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah. Doctor, thank you very much for setting aside time. I know that these are challenging times for your industry. Perhaps your sector comes under the greatest stress, at least as far as people are talking. But on behalf of Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I seized the opportunity today from Dr. Raghavan to propose the vote of thanks, expression of gratitude, because the last 6 days have been very exhilarating for us in putting these webinars together. We had a series of subjects being debated by experts. We had a great audience, informed audience, great interaction, and the icing on the cake was you talking about the tourism and travel. This is a sector that everybody knows, everybody wants to be part of, but it's surprisingly the sector that is likely to come out of it bruised. But I think you put it across in a manner in which one can still be hopeful. It's a question of time before their recovery takes place. And I thank you for being as articulate as a professor can, as is always known to be. But this webinar would not have been possible but for a dear friend of mine who came forward and said, yes, I will. And he is in one of the frames, and I'm going to request Aishwarya to unmute him so that he has a word. Our own committee member whom we all know very well, Ravi, has come forward to sponsor this initiative. Ravi, we can't thank you enough for that. Ravi, would you, Aishwarya is unmuting you. Can you say hello to everybody and offer a comment?
First of all, I will before that, I think I congratulate all of you for having come up with this novel and creative ideas. I think SICCI has done its best in this crisis, in educating the people and in articulating the various viewpoints as to how we should really overcome this greatest difficulty of our times. I congratulate the team and the president for that.
Thank you. Ravi, from whose Century Flour Mills has been the sponsor for this initiative. Ravi, would you like to go in now?
Sudhir, I thank you. Ravi, where is Ravi?
Ravi from Century. I can see the audio coming up, but Ravi? Okay, I think he's having some issue coming out of mute. When we put this together, Doctor, we know that the success of this program will be dependent on two things: inputs and output. Output in the form of a great anchor. And unhesitatingly, I reached my good friend T.S. Sudhir, who has never said no to any of my requests and did say it again. T.S., thanks so much for being part of this initiative. Your inputs have been valuable, and the quality of the program got raised because of your thing. I mean, I've been a very passive admirer of you almost from the time you started getting into TV journalism up until now. And over a period of time, Doctor, it's been my pleasure to become a member of his family. And Sudhir is one of the great guys I've met in the field of journalism. He and Uma are great people. And without sounding Donald Trumpish, let me straight away thank T.S.
We are really privileged.
And thank you, T.S. And look forward to
thank you. Pleasure.
It's a great pleasure to be able to. Sudhir, thank you.
Our limited bandwidth in the chamber, Doctor, didn't permit us to put this initiative together. We reached out to MITRAA, who's Sanjay Bandari and Kumar Pal, I see on the frame at this time. And they were the knowledge partners, and they worked in the back with Sudhir and the team to put this together. And I thank Sanjay and his team, led by KP, Kumar Pal, raise your hand, and then of course Shreyans and Divyan, who kept the questions feeding to Sudhir. So thank you very much, Team MITRAA. And finally, Dr. Raghavan and Aishwarya have been working tirelessly on this. At times we've had calls internally even at 10 p.m. in the night. And Dr. Raghavan has been a great source of support for us, led by him and Aishwarya. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, Aishwarya. And to all of you who made this possible. Somi, whom I would reach out to whenever I had this doubt. And every speaker, Somi and I failed to respond to us. And that's what makes us friendship even better. Thank you so much, Somi. And Ravi, are you there from Century? I think, Aishwarya, can you unmute him? Okay, Ravi, thank you so much. And Balu is also here, my good friend. Whose idea it was to get this going when we had a chat. In fact, thank you so much, Balu. Your support to me in the chamber has always been very defining. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend, folks. And from SICCI, all of you stay safe and stay healthy. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Sudhir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
All the
Thank
team,
you.
Dr. Raghavan and Ashwarya and the team. Thank you. Thank
Ravi,
Thank
you
you.
still have a second to come alive on the mic if you're there.
you. Balu, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you, sir.
Ravi, thank you.